And now, two guys who survived eating paste as kids, Aaron and Jonathan.
Howdy, and welcome to episode 101 of In the Rabbit Holes Urban Survival Podcast. In this episode, we talk farming with Darrell from FloridaHillbilly.com and go on vacation for the summer. We're your hosts, Aaron
and Jason.
And you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. All right, so today, very exciting show. We have a special guest and a damn good friend of the show, as a matter of fact. Darrell from FloridaHillbilly.com is joining us today. So, welcome aboard, Darrell.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. You guys have been part of my background education for about as long as you've been around, so I'm happy to help out any way I can.
That's awesome, man. And you've got a really fantastic blog yourself that actually I've picked up a lot on, especially when it comes to quail and rabbits and some other stuff. So I mean, we've definitely gotten a lot out of you too. So it's been a great thing. But before we dive into quail and all these other magical mystical things, and we get to listen to Darrell make fun of all the shenanigans that Jason and I've been up to and all the mistakes we've made over the last 2 or 3 years, we do have a special announcement, and we posted this out on Facebook and Twitter the other day, that there was going to be a special announcement. And that announcement is the Rabbit Hole is going to go on sabbatical until August 26th. We're not going away, and we will put the show into reruns so you guys and gals have lots of stuff to listen to while we're on. And we did a show a while back on prepper dips, and I guess the simple explanation is I have quite literally found myself in a bit of a prepper dip with doing the show. And that's not to say that I don't love the show. I really do. But it's, one of the things we pointed out in that was that it's very easy to become burnt out on things when you're spending a lot of time and you don't take breaks and you're really diving into it. And that's kind of what's happened here. I still love the show. And even it was funny. I think, Jason, you knew, you were like, okay, the show's really coming back, when the other day I was on a site where you can buy licenses to music, and I was going to pay a sizable chunk of change to buy new music for the show, since actually the music that's on our show can be heard on a few infomercials, and which is always annoying when you hear the thing come on and it's like the Gizmo gadget thing, and it's like, oh, it's like the worst product ever. But anyway, so you were like, yeah, it's really coming. I was like, yes, I've told you several times. We're not like, this isn't some excuse I'm making up. We are really coming back.
You weren't backing that. I bought like 3 things. I thought you were behind it because of the music.
Sorry, man. Wasn't us. What was it? It's like the Gojo or something like. It's like this weird strap to hold a cell phone to the side of your head.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty special. But
see, man, I thought you just wanted to go fishing with me and hunting and.
Well, I do.
Get to go play,
and that's
what my motivation is. It's like I get my best friend back.
Exactly, and I think that's part of it, is that I do actually need. We've been going at this for about 3 years now, and I need a little bit of a break. Navy Jim from the forum, who is actually in the production and entertainment world and all that, said, yeah, there's a reason why professional production crews take off I think it was 2 months at a time, twice a year. It's because you burn out, because there's a lot that goes into the show behind the scenes. I mean, the listeners get about an hour to an hour and a half per episode, but for every hour to an hour and a half of every episode, there's about another 5, sometimes even 6 hours that go into what happens before the show and what happens after the show, because we'll get guests on. And I view one of the responsibilities of having a show is making sure that everybody that comes on is treated with respect and is able to get their message out and has good content, but also that, not everybody is a radio personality. Not that I think we are either, but, you do your best to help them out and clean things up a little bit and let them have their best presentation possible. And so that does account for a lot of time and energy, plus just the technical aspects of running a show. So But I guess the real takeaway from this is that the show will be back at August 26th. I think that's the right day. I think that's like the first or the last Monday in August, and that gives us enough time. And Jason, you and I have been bouncing back some really cool ideas, and one of which is we do actually need to do something something that's beneficial to us, so that helps support the show financially, and so that I'm not literally like shelling out cash constantly on the show. Something that at least helps the show break even, maybe even give us a little more, so we can do some more exciting stuff and start. One of the things that I really want to get into is getting into video, and that's actually even more time consuming. But if we take a little break and recharge the prepper batteries,
The creative juices,
and
man.
actually get out to get from out behind this microphone and go do some stuff that we used
Actual
to do,
prep,
like
yes.
actual survival, like let's go hunting, camping, and fishing, and all that fun. And one of the other things too is that in doing the show, it's very difficult to take off time and actually go take, because there's like Cody Lundine's got a great school.
We have a great school down here.
There's actually a couple really great schools in Florida, and then there's Tom Brown, of course, has a great school, and so that's some stuff that I know that both you and I, Jason, have talked about quite a bit of, that we'd like to go take some more classes, or survival classes ourselves, and gain some more knowledge from people outside of our immediate area. So I think the show's going to come back definitely refreshed, and I think the quality of the show is going to come back up a lot, and there's going to be a lot of really cool things that we're going to be able to start doing, like actually making some interesting educational videos that we can put up, and doing some stuff to really help the rabbit hole support itself, and do something that really gives back the community, or gives the community a place to get stuff that is really hard to find survival items that are not the standard stereotypical kind of stuff that I don't know that you'd necessarily bet your life on, but kind of mail order catalog stuff that you usually run into. So we've got some plans here, and I think in the next 4 months we can pull them off. And one of the other things that we're going to pull off while we're on sabbatical is is something we're going to come to in just a bit about rainwater. But well, so let's dive into Darrell making fun of us. So Darrell, you've gotten to hear us. Go ahead.
I want to step out on a limb and speak for most of your listeners. Most of them that are common interest as mine. You're welcome to your time off as long as you're sure you're going to come back. Otherwise, I'm going to hunt you down.
Yeah, I did give, since everybody in the forum, I consider those like the closest part of the listeners. I mean, those are the people that are really engaged with each other, and are helping to build a community of help, support, and in a lot of ways mentorship for each other. I went to the forum first and just said, hey, look, guys, this is kind of where I'm at. This is what's going on. And I did promise to come back. Man, I'm having trouble with my voice today.
I know what you're talking about as far as running out of creative juices. I post 5 days a week for the last year and a half, and there are days when I sit down, I'm like, what the hell am I going to write about?
Yeah.
The only thing that saves me is I've got a wife that's extremely supportive in some of the crazy stuff that I do. So I get to do. I actually live the life. You pointed that out to me. You'd said something a couple weeks ago, and I found that I actually lived a life that a lot of you really wish you did. I live in town, and I've got chickens and rabbits and quail and ducks and gardens, and I go hunting and fishing and foraging. I do all that stuff that people talk about doing. I get to do it. And that's my life. It's not like I'm not doing it so that I can blog. I do it, and then I blog about it.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool.
Kind of cool.
Hey,
I didn't realize how lucky I was.
Yeah. And you're definitely, I did get a few threats on the forum about, I think
I was one of them.
You were one of them, as a matter of fact, but there were definitely a number of threats, like, yeah, enjoy your time, but come back, or we will hunt your butt down. So, but yeah, assurances that the show will be back. And literally, we're just going to go take some time to recharge and hopefully come back with some really
cool
off the wall stories.
Yes.
Of some other really stupid crap we've done in the pursuit of survival and other just random projects. So Darrell, you've had a good laugh at us, and I think you've shared in our pain too over.
Well, I only laugh because it wasn't that long ago I walked the same path that you guys walked with learning about the rabbits, and I grew up in West Virginia, having been born in Detroit. I'll fess up, I was born in Detroit. moved to West Virginia when I was 8 or 9, and I when I moved, I came home. I literally, it was everything I ever wanted, getting out of the city, living in the country. But the things that I do now, we didn't do. We had I lived on a farm with cattle and horses. We didn't have anything smaller than pigs, really. We had some chickens, but the things I do now, it's been a learning experience, especially the fact that I don't have hundreds of acres like I grew up on. So you can only do so much on a quarter acre. I put myself to sleep at night wondering, where can I squeeze another fruit tree in, or how can I get one more raised bed somewhere, or how can I move the rabbits around to get another cage of rabbits somewhere. So it's definitely a learning experience. And then to hear you guys making the same mistakes I made, I'm like, that's actually what brought me out of from the lurker status into an actual signed up member. Is, yeah, you know what? If you try this, it might work out a little better for you.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing because, I mean, you always think of it as, well, they're rabbits and they breed like rabbits. And so you can just throw them in there together. And it's not always
not that easy.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean,
it is,
yeah,
but it's not.
I would say it's that easy for the buck. He is in the three, well, not to go in a weird place, but in the three-way that exists there, the buck has got like the easiest job ever because he's just like 15 seconds of joy. He's done. You feed him, you give him a scratch, tell him he did a good job, and then it's up to you and the doe to pull your hair out.
Right. I have a friend of mine who's got a meat science degree, a 4-year degree from the University of Florida, and he actually worked in hog farms up in the Carolinas. And he is a very close friend of mine. He's probably my best friend here in Florida. He's been a solid person as far as what can I do in Florida? What's this about? How do I do this? He's been really good. And one of the things he said is when he worked in the hog farms up in the Carolinas, that the sows hated you because they knew that all they were going to be bred and be treated like a production machine and ignored until they farrowed, and then it was just work for them. But the boars, when you showed up, you were their best friend. They're like, hey, you're my best friend. And
yeah,
that's the rabbits are a smaller scale version of that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really are. I think one of them actually bit me the other night. I was like, I'm just reaching in to pet you. And she's like, I know where you're taking me. Like, no, I'm not. I'm just saying hi. That's all I'm doing.
My buck is the only real male on my property other than me.
Mm.
So he and I hang out a lot. I got 2 daughters and a wife and a whole bunch of female birds and does. And so Chuck the buck and I hang out a lot.
That's awesome. You'll kick it back with a beer, hang out.
Right. Imagine kicking back with Bobo.
Yeah.
What up, dude? How you doing?
Bobo is a thick little beast. He really is. We were joking the other day because I think we were talking about instead of solar power for a project, we were for our rainwater project. We were talking about just putting in like a great big hamster wheel and putting him in there. And you were like, and Jason, you were like, yeah, he's gonna have like a neck, like it's gonna be as thick as his hips by the time he's done with it. He's already kind of a beast. So, but we've been pretty excited. We actually have a white New Zealand doe that the first season. And we couldn't breed her again because it was like the very end of the season. But the first season, like we didn't get any kits out of her, and we finally gotten a batch of kits out of her. So now we finally have 2 bloodlines that we've started of bucks, so that we're not just like massively inbreeding everything.
What does it matter? You're just going to eat them, right? If they get an extra leg here and there, that's just bonus.
You know, I try to tell them that, but
I'm trying to keep the line clean so we're not having to replace anything very often.
Dude, 2 eyes, 3 eyes, 4 eyes, whatever.
That part ends up in a bucket anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Or the compost pile, which we probably shouldn't be putting those parts in our compost pile, but
why not?
Depends on how hot you get it, I suppose.
Actually, that's one of the, because we've finally started to. Which, composting is another one of those things. It's kind of like, oh, well, they're rabbits. It should be no problem. But composting is another one of those things where it really is. If you don't get the mixture right, or at least pretty close to right, it just kind of sits there and does nothing.
Oh, it does something, but it's not good.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one of my wife's peeves is she opens the back door and she's like, I smell something. She's sitting right here watching me and she's nodding her head yes. That means I have to take care of problems in the backyard quickly.
Yeah, we finally got the 2 compost piles that we've been playing with for a while to actually, I guess, ignite or whatever you call it, and you can lift it, and they're steaming and everything now. And we did try it. We threw in some leftover rabbit parts, we'll say, after our last culling. What is it, about a week, Jason? It was, you lifted a pile and it was just bone. It was just clean
That's good.
bone. Yeah.
Then you've got a really good compost pile going.
I think we've actually still got manure mixture a little too high in there, but we're getting ready to fix that with grass clippings and everything else. But that's been fun to see happening, and now we need to build some new planters soon, which is probably another one of the sabbatical projects we'll do, is over engineering some planters. Jason's nodding his head like, I know which drawings you're talking about. Because one day I actually had about an hour free, and I think we put this in one of the episodes. I had an hour free and drew up some planters with benches, and part of it was a fence, and Jason looked at it and he was like, oh God, not again. So, but I guess, so we're pretty excited about our bucks, but and I think some of the stuff with the does and everything, so here's a question. What do you do to keep track? Do you use a calendar or anything as far as keeping track of when the does are going to drop? Because that's one thing that I'll admit I'm actually pretty bad about, even though I have an iPhone on me and I'm out there and I could just put it in my calendar. For some reason, half the time it slips my mind to actually put it in, and then I find myself a week later like, oh, when did I breed that doe again? And when is she going to drop? And we've had a few accidents with it, but...
I'll make you feel better about your situation. A week and a half ago, I went out to one of my senior does, and she had 7 growing out kits in the nest box or in the box with her. And I'm looking, I'm like, what is that little? Oh my gosh, I bred her a month ago, didn't I? She had 2 litters, 30 days apart, in the same cage. I'm like, oh, time to move the big ones out.
Oh man.
I just completely spaced it. What I've taken to do lately is I have an application on my Android phone. It's a rabbit breeding calculator, and I have them. Each of my does are labeled top left, middle left, or middle top left, top middle, bottom left. That's their names, and I just mark when I breed them, and then I get an entry in my calendar, and then I get a notification. So I use Google Calendar effectively.
Oh, cool.
And that's the only way I know how to do it. I live by my iPhone, or excuse me, I'm by my Android phone. Oh my gosh, did I just say that? I'm anti-Apple. Sorry,
Dude. I'm right there with you. When you said that, a giant smile went across my face.
Yeah, Jason was over there actually, we were both making notes. I was making a note to see if there's anything on the iPhone for that, and I'm sure Jason was over there going, remember to ask Darrell what the app was. Actually, do you know what the name of the app is, Darrell?
I believe it's Rabbit Calculator.
Oh, that makes it simple enough.
You punch in, you actually hit bred, and it defaults to that day. So all I have to do is hit a single button, and it marks a rabbit as bred, and I still can't get that right. So it happens.
Especially when there's no nesting box in there, and you come in and find babies on the wire.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah.
I always feel like such a jerk.
Yep, that's the way I felt.
And even what was interesting was even if you catch it, or even if when I've caught it within a couple of hours, unless you get them in a heating pad or something like that, if you just then put a box in there and put hay down and everything like that, I still have never been able to get them to stay alive once they've been born on the wire.
I've been pretty lucky. I actually found 2 of them outside of the cage because they don't have baby wire in that particular cage. I use a nest box, and I keep the nest box in, and once the kids start jumping out, I turn it on its side, and that gives the mother someplace to get away from them.
Okay.
All they want to do once they get out of the cage is nurse.
Yeah.
So
We've been really happy with since we switched over to the subterranean nesting boxes that are literally just you cut out a hole in the bottom and attach them. But that, I know that doesn't work out well for everybody, but for us, since our cages are actually suspended about 4 feet, the bottom of the cages are about 4 feet off the ground, Jason. Yeah. So we got lots of, it's very easy for us to actually do the subterranean nesting boxes. And for us, it's just to even check on the kits. They've got the latched front hatches. And so you just kind of stoop down a little bit and open that hatch and look right in. So we've been really happy with that. And it's nice because it keeps the if one of the kits kind of gets dragged out of the nesting box because it wouldn't let go of the mother's nipple, then the does have been really good about nudging the kits back in, or the kits fall back in on their own. And the other thing is they can't really get out of there until they're really big enough, and then by then the mother's ready to just tell them off, like, "Hey, get off me, kids."
Yeah, I have one cage that I put one of those in, and I love it.
Yeah.
I don't have a swing out door, but it's right in front of the opening for the cage, so it works out really well. A lot better than having a box. And in the event that I forget, there's already a nest box built into the cage.
Yeah. Now, the one that you have on the bottom, is it a wooden one, or is it, because the ones we put on were they're basically made out of baby saver wire, the wire with the really small holes.
Yeah, mine's the inch by half inch wire.
Okay.
I just cut a hole and slapped it in there.
Yeah.
After this thing to you guys, when I made it. So there, see, even I can learn from you.
Oh,
It works both ways.
Amazing.
It works both ways. That's the value of community.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, we've actually gone through and we've converted, because we just tried it out on a few and we actually liked it so much that we went back to the old cages, which is something we really didn't want to do, because we've got how many cages? We've got 16 cages. So
Wow.
that meant we had to go back through 16 cages and cut all that wire out. And for those that have never tried to cut through the I'm not even sure what gauge that is, but cut through that it's about not quite pencil lead thick.
It's like 14, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's about 14 gauge, and your hand gets real sick of clipping that wire real fast.
What are you using for clipping it?
We were using just a pair of like electrical dikes, and that was a huge mistake. We've since gone out and bought a small pair, like the smaller of the pairs of cable cutter. So we're using that now. That works pretty well, but that's still, even that, doing it on 16 cages gets kind of old.
I use a pair of Harbor Freight nippers that work magnificently.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Still wears your hand out though after a cage or two.
Yeah. It is amazing how fast your hands wear out on that stuff.
Hey, we were doing about 2 at a time, weren't we? There was that one time where we did 4, but
Yeah, there was one day where we did 4, but we were just going through and do two cages at a time for a couple of weeks while we were switching over the cages to them. And then we haven't thrown away the old nesting boxes, but they're just kind of, I think I'm using one of them now to collect eggs.
yeah.
I put some hay in the bottom of it and use that to collect the eggs. I'm not even sure what I did with the other ones. I think the other ones are just sitting on top of the cages. I don't even remember. And I don't want to throw them away because they're still good, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know what to do with these.
What are they made of? Your old nesting boxes?
They're made of the same stuff. They're made out of the baby saver wire.
Craigslist.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I could do that. Put them on there, free to a good home, or $1 or $2 or something like that.
Right.
Used rabbit nesting box. Urine at no extra charge.
Right.
Pre-marked.
That was one of the funny things, that because we've been in a drought here for so long that generally the rabbit urine and everything else, it dries out really fast over here. So it doesn't usually, you can smell that there's rabbit over there, especially with as many rabbits as we've got right now. I think we're sitting on about somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 rabbits.
Wow.
And so that ends up being a lot of rabbit urine, which is usually hasn't been a problem since it's been so dry here. But then all of a sudden the other day we got a downpour, and now it just reeks of rabbit piss back there.
Mm.
It's actually drowning out the chicken poop in a lot of ways.
Wow.
Yeah, it's extra pungent and special.
What's the ground underneath your cages?
It's concrete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically it's a big rabbit urine sponge.
Ouch.
Yeah. But it makes for manure collection very easy.
Yeah. The ground here is all sand, so liquids percolate quickly.
So I wonder if the rabbit piss would just go straight in, or does it have a tendency to kind of stick on the surface?
No, it's gone.
Oh, nice.
The problem I have with waste material is the quail.
Yeah, so tell us your quail. You did a really nice large article on quail not too long ago. So tell us about that, because I know that's been kind of the new thing in the prepper community, at least new in that a lot of people are talking about it. And
worst stuff to get it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've written a bunch of articles about quail. I've written about, I did a guest article for homesteader.net, I believe it was. I forget. I've written several articles on my site. And then actually last week I did a 5-part step-by-step. I just had a batch of I put a batch of 16 eggs into an incubator I built myself out of a styrofoam cooler and had 12 of them hatch out. I said, you know what? It's time to ramp this up again because my chickens are starting to become a hassle just for space problems. And I'll get into, I had another issue also recently. I'll get into it in a little bit, but I've decided that I'm going to get rid of, I have Muscovy ducks as well. And right now I have 2 ducks on the nest. I've got about 35 eggs that are going to be incubated. So I'm about to be overrun by birds. I don't have enough freezer space at this point, which is a nice problem to have. But
Yeah.
But I really like the quail because they take up less space. The weight of food to egg conversion is better than a chicken. You get, I believe a chicken requires 3 pounds of eggs to make 1 pound of, or excuse me, 3 pounds of feed to make 1 pound of eggs. The quail require 2 pounds of feed to make a pound of eggs. A chicken requires, I believe it's 6 square feet of space per bird. And then the quail requires 6 square inches.
Really?
So a 2 foot by 3 foot cage, a rabbit cage, you can fit 20 to 25 quail in. And if they're all females, if they're all hens, the quail egg to chicken egg conversion is 3 or 4 eggs to 1. So you can effectively have 6 eggs equivalent, 5 to 6 eggs equivalent a day from a single rabbit cage. You can't get, there's no way you can come anywhere near that from chickens. The only thing that I will say about quail eggs that's a pain is, of course, it takes more to equal what you use with chickens. Deviled eggs are they're kind of a joke to make, but we still make them. They make great party conversation starters. Like, am I just that big or are those eggs that small? And sometimes the answer is both. The biggest problem with quail eggs is when you go to crack them open like you're going to fry them.
Yeah.
There's a membrane or a thicker membrane than what you have in a chicken egg. So what we found is sushi. If you go to a sushi bar, they serve quail eggs over top of your sushi, and sometimes some of the dishes they use it's a combination scissor and cigar cutter. You put there's a circle ring, and you set it over top one end of the egg, and you slice the end of the egg off, and you pour the egg out. And you can go through 30 eggs in 3 minutes.
I've always wondered about that.
That's probably the only downfall is it takes a special tool to open them up easily. But once you have that, we're seriously thinking about getting rid of all of our birds. Well, I say we. I am. My wife doesn't care as long as she has fresh eggs. She'll eat any of them. But I'm seriously thinking about getting rid of all my birds except for quail, just going down to rabbits and the quail for my protein production.
Wow. So now, is the quail manure as pungent as chickens? Are there any other, or is it about the same?
Well, I would say it's more so because chickens tend to scratch through their own waste. And because the quail are raised on cages, it drops down and it's not wet enough so that the moisture dissipates. So you either have to shovel it on a regular basis or have it drop into something that's absorbent, like wood chips or sawdust.
Okay. So, that makes sense. All right. So now, do the quail eggs actually have a different flavor?
You would never know the difference. If you're having a fresh quail egg and a fresh non-store-bought egg, you wouldn't know any better.
You know, speaking of the membranes, we've actually run into that, which was a weird thing. With the Australorps, Jason found some Australorps locally, which are the big black chickens from Australia, and they're good egg layers and they're good chickens, but their eggs are actually very hard to open. It's
because
not
of the membrane.
Yeah, it's like it's a really thick membrane, and it's funny because you go to crack it on the side of a pan, and then you go to open it, and it's like, I see this thing's cracked, it's almost open halfway, and there's just this, and you're like, what is with this? What is with this egg?
Yeah, you always got to pull them apart, and if you hard boil them, you'll never get a clean egg out of hard boiling them.
You know the secret to hard boiling eggs? We've gone through thousands of eggs in this house. You let them sit for 2 weeks. Once they develop the air pocket inside the egg, they're much easier to peel.
Huh. So do you put them in the fridge or you just leave them out?
Just either one. You know, the United States is the only country that I'm aware of that refrigerates eggs.
Yeah.
I spent a couple of years over in England, and they're like, why are your eggs in your refrigerator?
Yeah. I lived in New Zealand for a while. The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, in a lot of ways, we've actually, before I bring, because we're at a point now where we're getting about 10 to a dozen eggs a day out of our chickens. And it's so many eggs, and Jason's in between apartments right now, so he's not even eating eggs. So we've got like dozens of eggs, and I'm just like, we just leave them out. All we'll do is kind of clean them off and then leave them out, and then I'll go in and I'll grab 2 dozen a week, and my mom will grab 2 dozen a week, and then I'll bring them home and clean them off further once I get home, and then I'll put them in the refrigerator just because I think my girlfriend would yell at me actually if I left them out. She would be like, "What are you doing?" But anyway, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they'll sit out for a couple weeks. Now, the one thing I have found is it's a really bad idea to just leave the eggs in the coop for more than a few days. Because one, I found that the chickens seem to get mad at me because you'll go up to them and it's like, why is that chicken 3 inches higher than it should be? And it's just this massive eggs underneath them. And the other problem is, like, we had one of the Australorps went to brood, and now she just flat won't make any eggs, and all she wants to do is sit on eggs. And she has been sitting on eggs, and when you let them sit out there in the coop for a week, and then you give them to your mother, you get a complaint back that there were baby chickens in her eggs when she made omelets.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
You have a rooster?
yeah, well, we have 2 roosters right now. We have Randy, who's our Americana rooster, who we really enjoy.
Nice name.
Yeah. Well, Jason and I have been joking that apparently we only give our male barnyard animals porn star names, and so we also have Red Rocket, who is our other rooster. We keep putting off eating him for some reason. I don't know, because we kind of like him. He's kind of a cool rooster, but we really have to get rid of him because all he's doing is confusing our bloodlines and eating up a bunch of feed. And with 15 chickens, you don't really need 2 roosters.
No.
Yeah. So
Actually, they're starting to lose fur or feathers again.
yeah, we're back to the problem where we've got a bunch of hens without feathers on their back.
Too much attention.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
a good way to put it.
Yes.
I have. I told you I had Muscovy ducks.
Mm-hmm.
I had to. I try to let my chickens free range in my backyard as much as possible. They keep the bugs down. I don't use any pesticides or sprays whatsoever, so my birds keep my bugs down, which works. I found that nature finds a nice level of equilibrium if you let it sit long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Once all the poisons get out of the system, the predators will move back in, and they'll take out. And you don't have an issue with bugs because something's going to eat everything. So I like to leave my chickens out. And as my Muscovies got older, I kept one Drake, and he weighs about 15 pounds. And speaking of porn stars, he's kind of endowed that way. And if it moves and he can get on top of it, he's there.
Awesome.
Well, it sounds that way, but he's mounted my chickens and killed 3 or 4 of them.
Oh no.
Yeah, and that's just not the way you want to go.
Yeah.
So I've had to pen up my chickens. So he's not high on my favorites list. So I don't hang out with him because he's killed too much stuff.
Oh man, he would have been sous vide in a heartbeat, man.
And speaking of chickens, I said I was going to talk about them. I had a problem. I had a knock on the door about 2 months ago. I was under the impression that I live in the county, and I looked at the county regulations, and they said that you can have any animal you like as long as there's basically it's any animal you want as long as it's not a noise or smell nuisance. So if I wanted to have an elephant, I could keep it cleaned up. I could have one. I got a knock on the door, and the deputy sheriff's there, and he says, "You have chickens?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm not going to lie to the guy because
right.
Push comes to shove, he's just going to look.
Yeah.
Turns out that somebody else in the neighborhood had a chicken that was running loose and was roosting in the carport and pooping on the guy's car, and he was upset about it. The deputy had gotten word that I had chickens, and turns out that the county ordinance says it's okay, but the zoning ordinance doesn't. So I'm actually in violation of the county ordinance. But he was really cool about it. He says, I see a lot of it. I see more and more of it every day. He's the agricultural liaison. And he says that he sees more and more people trying to raise their own food, and he doesn't have a problem with it. So I went through the trouble of finding the other chicken and caught it for him and returned it to him. And he said, "You know what? You fixed my problem, so you don't have a problem."
Oh,
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's the benefit of building community. If you treat people like people,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get stepped on in return for stepping on somebody. So, and you said you have all these extra eggs. I never have extra eggs because I have enough neighbors around me that I have to bribe with eggs to keep them happy.
Right.
Yeah, that is one of the recommendations I've heard often. If you have neighbors, is to be a good neighbor and give them some eggs. I mean, they're having to, especially if you have a rooster, they're putting up with your rooster. Now, fortunately, we're in a situation where it's like we're more than far enough away from any kind of residential stuff. Plus, we are in our farm is in an industrial area, and there's a huge cooling tower right next door that actually makes more noise than our roosters. So,
I'm also lucky. If it push came to shove, there was a silent movie star, Frances Langford. I'm guessing you guys are like me and too young to remember her, but she had settled in this area back in the 30s, I think it was, 30s or 40s, and had imported a bunch of peacocks, and they've gone feral. Huh. And there's anywhere between a dozen and 5 dozen peacocks wandering the streets at any one time, and they poop and scream and holler, and they're rather annoying.
Mm-hmm.
If you live here, it's 7 o'clock at night, you're trying to watch TV, and one's sitting on your roof, and it's calling, and it sounds like a woman screaming.
Oh, nice.
So I was going to fall back on, well, I'll get rid of my chickens when animal control comes and takes care of those.
Yeah.
I was lucky, and I didn't have to push the issue.
Yeah, that's actually, I've heard that happen in several parts of the country where somebody brought in a peacock, they went feral, and then the whole area gets overrun with them.
Well, come Thanksgiving this year, if I have my way, there's going to be one in the smoker.
Hey, let me know how that works out. I'm actually, because Jason, you went to India for a while.
Exactly, dude. I was just fixing to bring that up.
And I kept asking you, I was like, so did you try the peacock? And you were like, no, only, you've got to go way out into the country for that and all this stuff. And I was like, so disappointed.
Oh, man. But I actually that was one of the first things I brought up. I was like, so do y'all eat those here? And they're like, oh, no, that's just that's tribal food. And I'm like, okay, so where do I go for that? I was one of the few guys that have gone to India for my company, and I actually put on 10 pounds because I looked at everything and I was like, what's that? Give me some of that. Give me some of this. Give me some of that. What's that other stuff that I liked the other day? Yeah, give me 2 of those. And
you do that at the Italian deli down the street. It's not just when you go to India.
It sounds like peacocks to you are like manatees are for me. Manatees are on my bucket list of things to eat.
Man. Well, see, my grandfather had them when I was a kid. So, I'm very familiar with peacocks, and like we had peacock feathers all over my house for decorations or whatever. And like my grandparents ate them. So I mean, to me it's just like it's a really pretty turkey.
Yeah.
That's all it is to me. And to see them out there in the wild in India and like on the office roofs, I was just like, oh, that's just so cool.
Then you'd like my neighborhood. They're everywhere.
Oh, the 22 would be out, man.
What's joyous is the fact that in Florida, feral animals are the property owner of whoever their property they're standing on.
That's awesome.
Oh, nice.
Dude, I would not have a peacock problem.
So now, Darrell, have you gotten to eat a peacock yet?
Not yet. It's. I actually made a phone call the day before Thanksgiving last year. The guy that does the heads and the hog farms. Mm-hmm. He smokes a turkey for me about every year when I can stay on his good side. And I called him up. I'm like, hey, you have room for one more bird in the smoker? He's like, why? What you got? And I said, there's 6 peacocks in my backyard. He's like, no, I don't have room. He said, but remind me next year. We'll do it next year. But he's an adventurous type too. So.
Oh yeah, knock one of those down, brine it for about a week, man. Oh, dude,
you would have to brine it a week. I'm guessing 24 hours would be enough.
You think?
I'll tell you how it goes.
All right. I'd be throwing some vinegar in it, man, just to try to break it down a little more or something.
Yeah, they are going to be a tougher bird than your typical because they're out there foraging. It's basically wild game.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now,
I don't care.
I'll eat anything, man. You don't understand.
I'm from West Virginia. Roadkill is a legitimate food product for us.
I'm down, man. I'm down.
So now, speaking of animals disappearing, you had a weird thing you were just telling us about with your aquaponics system that you've been playing with.
I don't know how that worked. I just don't understand how that worked. I got a 55-gallon drum I use for a barrel ponics, basically, and it pumps water out of the 55-gallon into 2 1/3 barrels on the top as my planter sections. And I had 4 tilapia and a goldfish in there, and it was running and running and running. The water is kind of dark here in Florida, and I don't usually get a chance to see the fish during the day because the light behind me, it doesn't work. The only way I can see them is if I remember to go out at night with a flashlight and shine the light in the water, and then I can usually see what's going on.
Hmm.
And I went out about a month ago, and I'm looking. I'm like, where are the fish? No, seriously, where are the fish? There are no fish in here. There's no sign, no trace. I don't think it was a raccoon because I have a pit bull that patrols the yard pretty regular, and she knows not to mess with the rabbits or the chickens or the ducks, but anything else is fair game. So I don't know where they went. The only thing I can figure is they died, broke down, and the water pumping circulated back into the plants up top, and the plants pulled the nutrients out, and there might be bones down in the bottom in the little bit of debris that's down there. That fish disappeared.
Wow.
That is so weird.
It's strange.
You would think if they died, they would float to the top or something.
You would think.
Who knows? I mean, they might have for a time and then sunk back down. Who knows? That is so weird. And we were all talking about this before the show because one of the conclusions that you and I came to, Jason, was that at least from what we were able to tell, unless you get into a really big setup with aquaponics, it's just not that useful.
Yeah, I mean,
Red claws.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to red claws in a minute because there's a lot of funny stories or a lot of funny conversations around red claws. But for the more serious part of the discussion about that doesn't involve shenanigans or ski masks, and being some weird episode of Smokey and the Bandit with us hauling red claws across state lines, which I'm totally down for that. I want to drive the Trans Am though. I'll even grow out a mustache for that.
Not a problem, man.
But Darrell, you kind of agree with this, like, is just our experience and looking at it and looking at all these systems. I mean, you're a lot more limited in what you can grow than I think most people realize.
There's a lot more inputs needed than it, to me, is worthwhile. I'll admit it. I'm lazy when it comes to doing things. If I can't automate it, I'm not that interested in it. And the amount of effort it takes to get a meal out of an aquaponics just doesn't seem worth the trouble.
Mm.
Yeah, from everything that I read, you literally have to get the fish population up to a almost critical mass to be able to produce enough nutrients that will actually feed anything more than, say, lettuce.
That's all I'm growing in mine, lettuce.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding was that's the only thing you really can grow unless you're just like really pumping it out hard.
Yeah.
And my lettuce seems to grow fine on a barrel of water with no fish in it.
Oh man. And I think the other part, and you and I talked about this a while back, is that Darrell, is that and Jason, you and I talked about it too, is that to really do a big aquaponic system, when you start getting into the materials necessary, you're starting to talk about some expensive materials.
Yeah, I actually have a friend who has a swimming pool that he didn't want to maintain, so he let it go, turn green, and he's got tilapia in it now. And when he needs tilapia, that's where actually where I got mine. He threw a cast net and pulled out about 30 tilapia and brought them to me, and that was my start. Of course, I killed all of them.
Well, something killed them. I mean, we don't know what it killed them, but something.
Oh, I'm
did.
pretty sure I'm partly to blame. Oh, for the record, if anybody's wondering, 27 tilapia is too many for a 55-gallon drum.
Poor fish. Never knew what hit him.
My setup's pretty cool though. I've got 2 solar panels and 4 deep cycle batteries that charge all day long. I'm in zone 10 for agriculture. I'm 22nd parallel, I think it is. I'm way down south.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I get a lot of sunlight. So I've got 2 solar panels, about 90 watts of solar panels that charge about 350 amp hours of batteries. That's powering a timer that pumps my water from my aquaponics. So I don't have any electrical inputs in it now, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
My batteries also power my fans for my rabbits and lights for my quail. Quail require 12 to 14 hours of light, and I keep an LED light over top of their cage, and I get eggs 12 months out of the year because of it.
Huh.
Nice.
Which burns through the birds a little faster, but that's okay. They taste good.
Exactly.
Stop laying eggs. I got a place to stock you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the reasons we've liked Americana so much, is because when you get a bunch of roosters in your in your batch, they taste a lot like quail. So
Nice.
I think since we now have a note in our file with the city that we have a really nice farm, and we were told we shouldn't see anybody anymore, I think we may now get a little more adventurous and try some quail this summer while we're on sabbatical. Of course, now I'm going to make all these plans for while we're on sabbatical and be just as worn out when I get back as I'm trying to cram a 10-pound sack of you-know-what into a 5-pound bag. But,
Quail are really easy.
oh, I'll overcomplicate it.
If you have raised beds, do you have any gardens?
No, not yet.
All right. Do you know how long it takes to get peas out of planting seeds?
Mm-hmm.
About 65 days.
Yeah.
Now, you could take a quail egg, a fertilized quail egg, put it in an incubator, and in 60 days have a harvestable bird.
Nice.
That is
And
nice.
on top of that, you'll have 2 weeks of egg production in addition to that if it's
Wow.
a female.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So-
That's a lot better than chickens. The turnaround time on chickens is
It's 17 days to hatch versus 21 for a chicken. It's 3 weeks in a brooder, and then you move them from the brooder to a grow-out cage. It's 3 more weeks there, and boom, you're eating quail.
2
months from the day you put them in the incubator.
wow.
What's the dress out weight?
Very small. Live weight, if you get a 14 or 15 ounce bird, that's pretty impressive. But dressing them out, that's another nice thing about quail is with a pair of, you don't even need a knife. You could take a pair of kitchen shears or garden shears, cut their head off. When they're done flopping, you cut the wings off, cut the feet off, turn it over so that the back is up. No, excuse me. You'll take the feathers off first. You flip it up, breast up, put your thumbs together, split the skin like you would on a dove, peel the skin off, and then turn it over. Take the shears into the vent, cut along the spine on both sides, pull the spine out, pull the entrails out, rinse it, next. And it takes about as long to do as what I just said.
Oh, wow.
So you're butterflying them.
Basically, across the back.
Yeah. That's
It's
not
really
bad,
simple.
man.
Really simple. And if I'm going to have some form of poultry, I'm going to want quail because if you've seen my plucking a Muscovy duck video, and fast forward, it took me 20 minutes. If you watch it, it was brutal. Oh,
Yeah,
I just don't like plucking birds.
it is brutal, man.
And
And I did 20 roosters at one time, man. I know all about plucking and how brutal it is.
pluck 20.
Yeah,
No.
pluck 20 of them.
I was really lucky that day. I was busy, so Jason got stuck with all of it.
It would be worthwhile to rent one of those plucker drum things.
You know, I blanched them in I had a big propane burner and a big crawfish pot. And, and I just stuck them in for about, I don't know, maybe 30, 45 seconds and pulled them out. And they actually pulled fairly easy.
Yeah, but it's the meticulous detail after you get the majority. It takes you about 20% of the time to do 90% of the feathers.
Yeah.
And then 80% of the time to do the last 10%.
Very true. I can't argue that.
And there's always like that one random feather that gets left in behind, and you're like, ugh, what was that?
And if you don't have white birds, if you've got any color to them, and you've got a wife like mine, she'll be like, "There's a pin feather there. You need to get that. Oh, there's a pin feather there. You need to get that. There's a pin feather there."
Yeah, I think we only have one white chicken, so we got a lot of pin feathers.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
Get them? You have no pin feathers. I did a video with Muscovy ducks. I harvested and cleaned it. It took me 45 minutes to do the first duck, and I plucked it. And I did the scalding and everything, and then I skinned the second bird, and it was like 12 minutes. And it was the first time I'd ever dressed out a duck.
Oh, wow.
So it was
Yeah, man,
quite the difference.
Duck skin is so good.
Oh, you're telling me.
Oh, God.
Now Muscovies are a little different. They're not. They're more of a. They're a tropical bird, so they're more of a. I don't want to say cormorant, but they're less of a duck than what you're used to if you're used to like the mallards. But we found that the meat is extremely sweet. Now it might just be me. I've been eating paleo for the last year and a half, so I limit my sugar intake. But I took one of these Muscovy duck breasts and I butterflied it out, just a fillet, no skin, nothing. Fried it in butter, both sides, and ate it, and it tasted sweet. Hungry just thinking about it.
Yeah. I think we're all getting pretty hungry here. Probably switch back to aquaponics for a minute before we eat the microphones. So, which actually that was funny because we forgot to tell the red claw. So, okay.
Oh yeah.
So, I guess we first have to start with a conversation of why I was going to grow out a mustache, and we'd need to transition into cross state lines to bring him back. Which apparently there's Jason, I think you explained it as they're basically freshwater lobsters, but
Well, see, I'm basically a damn coon ass, anyways.
well, yeah,
So,
we knew that.
You know, crawfish in general, I'm like, it's always like this big giant battle here in Texas to get bigger crawfish, right? Well, I spent some time down there in New Zealand, and I went to some place, and they literally had. I mean, I was like, those are the biggest crawfish I've ever seen in my life. And I started finding out about them, and I was like, we need these in Texas, for God's sakes. I can farm this stuff and get this. I can sell this stuff for like 12, 15 bucks a pound. People would easily pay for that just because of the size of them. I started doing some research and more research, and we had them here for a little while, and then they banned them, and you can't get them back in. I'm just like, oh man, you got to be kidding.
Because they're what, an invasive species?
They worry about them being an invasive species. The problem is that we've got it's kind of a bacteria here in the local waters. So if they actually escape, they're gonna die. Plus, it gets cold enough here they can't survive. You have to put in a heater if you're going to be raising them. So to actually have them here in Texas really isn't that big of a danger for them to be an invasive species, just for the simple fact that we get cold enough to kill them off, and then plus the native crawfish have a disease that they will that will spread to them and kill them off. They don't have an immunity to it because they're from the southern hemisphere.
Interesting.
I think they're worried that they grow so fast and so easily in captivity that they get loose. They're allowed in Florida with extreme restrictions. You've got to have state licenses, and you get inspected all the time. And I like to jump the radar. That level of gray you speak about, that's other than my blog, I try to do that as much as possible.
So now, how's the meat? It's
delicious.
Is it as good or better than crawfish?
Oh, yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
It tastes just like crawfish, man.
Oh wow, okay. And I guess the big thing is that they grow real fast.
A foot long or more, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Imagine a foot long crawfish.
That's a big crawfish.
Oh yeah.
That is a big crawfish. And I guess the other thing is they grow real fast.
Darrell, do you have the actual grow out date? I think
No, I don't. I found out that I had to have a license, and they were not going to let me do it in my backyard, so I decided not to look too much further into it, other than where can I get some to eat.
Yeah, I think it's basically half the time as normal crawfish. Like normal crawfish, you've only got really one season.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys, they don't burrow, they don't hibernate. They'll grow all year long, so you can harvest them, I think, every 6 months.
Oh wow, okay. Huh, that's pretty cool. So I guess that leads to why we are actually going to do some aquaponics, but I think we're going to do it partly as an experiment, because one of the things we want to see is we're going to use, I'd say we're probably going to end up using about 90% of the aquaponic system that we do. We're going to use it to grow duckweed, and we're going to see if we can do duckweed and kale and then make our own rabbit pellet. I think that's kind of the direction we're going with. The only problem we run into with duckweed is the protein might be actually too high for rabbits. So we got to bring it back down with the kale, which is good because it has a real high vitamin K, which apparently makes rabbits more fertile.
Awesome. How do you harvest? I've got duckweed growing in the top of my my aquaponics barrel. How do you harvest it to feed the rabbits? Just skim it off?
Yeah, what we're thinking about is skimming it off and then putting it in a solar dehydrator. And then once we have enough, I've been checking it, and surprisingly enough, the machines that make the rabbit pellet, and now I can't think, there's an actual name for it, and I can't think of it now, but the machines are kind of expensive. So you've got to really hunt to find a used one, because I knew some of those things are like $2,000. So we're going to hunt around and try to find a used one with the right dyes and see if we can't make our own rabbit pellet out of our aquaponic system. So that way, because we're not going to make enough vegetables out of it for what we want, or the kinds of vegetables that we want, like the bell peppers and the tomatoes and the larger stuff that's a lot more complicated to do in aquaponics. So that's kind of where we're going with ours. But I guess that also lends to the other. I don't think we're not going to get into the aquaponics this summer, but we are, and this kind of goes back to the beds. That's one of the reasons we have 2 4-foot by 4-foot by about 2. Is it 2 feet or 2.5 feet? I think it's 2 feet deep.
Okay.
Yeah, about 2 feet deep planters that we made out of shipping pallets, and then we immediately ran into the issue of there's no water over here on this side of the property, so we're having to literally bucket brigade water out there. And it's at the point now where we've got the farm takes about 10 gallons of water a day, and that's a lot of water to truck from a block away, to drag from a block away. So we're getting ready to start now that it looks like the drought in Texas might be over, we're getting ready to start a big rain catchment system. I think we're going to start with a 1,200 gallon tank. And we did, one of the things we were talking about before the show was actually that I think we are going to go with plastic, because there is a place here in Houston, and I'm going to see if at some point we can actually get an interview with him. I know I want to go by and at least talk to him before we do the rain, and at least give him the chance to sell us on, why is the metal better other than longevity. Because I know they listed the metal ones on the website as having a lifespan of like 30 years. And I was like, I hope to not even have this property in another 30 years. I darn sure don't want to be trying to move a 1,200 gallon metal tank
Right.
anytime. So I think we're going to start with 1,200 gallons. And I think we were trying to figure it out the other day. The goal is to get up to about 3,600 gallons by adding 2 additional tanks at a later date, if we don't kill ourselves in the process of actually putting in the first one.
Right.
Yeah, because we've got to put it in on a platform, and one of the things we were joking about is that it actually may be my mother that kills us, because one of the things to anchor the platform is we were going to drill into the I-beams of the building and run some steel cable. And Jason was like, "Your mother's going to be okay with this?" And I was like, "I don't think so. That's where we're going to do it on a Sunday when she's not here."
Middle of the night.
Middle of the night. Yeah, it's gonna be noisy because it's about a 40,000 square foot building. So the I-beams that are the structural members of that building are not exactly small. So
I hate to jump around, but back to the red claws.
Yeah,
you piqued my interest, or you refreshed my memory on something. If you've ever had a freshwater aquarium, there's a species of crayfish you can get, a blue lobster. And it's the same species, and you can buy those at your local aquarium, your pet store.
Huh?
It's called a blue lobster.
Blue lobster, same species. I don't know if they'll grow out if you allow them to, but if the taste is right, I'd be willing to try it. They're about $12 a piece to buy one for your tank, or they were last time I looked.
Yeah, well, red claws are about that cost as well.
Well, this is the one that's like 3 inches long, a little tiny guy. But if you can get breeding stock, I don't know if they just sell, if there's like the tilapia, they only sell one gender. But now what you've done? Now I want to go out to the pet store and see what's available.
Right? Now, how big do those guys get, the blue lobsters?
A pound and a half.
Oh, that'd work.
Yeah.
Now, we can also, at least here in Texas, we can do freshwater shrimp.
Yeah.
Now, the freshwater shrimp are huge.
Are they?
Oh, yes.
But are they tasty?
Yeah, they are very tasty.
Huh. I don't think I've ever had freshwater shrimp before.
You and your little missus need to take a swing down to, she knows exactly what they are.
I'm sure she does.
Are they a shrimp or are they a prawn?
They're prawn.
Okay.
They're very large, and they're very, very tasty. You talk about sweet meat? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So are you just going to dump a bunch of those in your water tank?
Yes. Well, my original plan was to have those ICB tanks, and do one tilapia, one shrimp, and one crawfish, and then the crawfish thing went out, so I was just like, damn.
I think we're probably going to still try to do the IBC tanks for the actual livestock tanks themselves, and then I don't know. I think we'll probably use the rainwater system that we're putting in to fill the tanks, but we're not going to cycle the water back into the tanks, since I think the other goal for that rainwater system is that it's actually drinkable water, and that that there's no chance of contamination for it.
Drinkable by who?
Drinkable by me and the other people around me. Because I'll drink pond water. I don't care, and I've never had a problem with it. But there are some people in our clan that some princesses that you can't put a pea under their mattress, or they get ill or complain. So
yes.
I'm going to put in a shameless product plug right now. We have a Berkey water filter, the travel for our house, and we run all of our water through it.
The Berkey's like pretty famous in the community, and I've always been curious, like, how do people really like it? Because I don't think I knew anybody that really had one.
I have one. The travel is their smallest stainless steel one, the smallest metal one, and my only complaint is the smallest one they have is just too damn tall. It doesn't quite fit underneath our microwave, so you have to jockey things around when you try to open the microwave. But since we don't cook with it very often, it's not a huge deal. But yeah, we use it all the time. We figure if we do a gallon and a half a day, we should get about 3 years out of it, out of the filters. So, and water quality here in Florida is horrible.
Is it really?
Yeah, the good water that you get out of the ground is still fairly passable.
Huh. Yeah, I think this is kind of one of the other projects is we've got I've got 2 spare 55-gallon spare 55-gallon plastic drums, and so I think we're gonna take one and do the whole make your own giant filter thing, and use the first drum for the rainwater to go into, and then use the second drum as the filter, and then the water go on into the tanks from there. But we're gonna should be interesting making our own charcoal and doing all that stuff.
You could buy the Berkey filters and make your own. It saves you probably around $125 off their smallest unit.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah. And they remove a lot of stuff. If you put in red food dye, it comes out clear. It'll actually remove food dye, which is impressive to me.
Oh, wow. That is pretty cool. See, but then we don't get to have the shenanigans of building our own giant water filter.
Pick and choose your battles. You don't have that many months of downtime before you need to show together.
This is true, and I was actually watching some videos on making charcoal, and I was like, wow, that's not a fast process.
No, it's not.
It's really not. Of course, I also immediately got distracted by the videos on make your own black powder that corresponded to the make your own charcoal, and I was like, oh crap, an hour's gone by, but now I know how to make black powder. That's awesome. Just in case. But anyway, yeah, I guess
words I live by right there, just in case.
Just in case, yeah. I think it might be because one of the other things we were talking about doing and making the filter might be a good excuse to make a goofy video of us breaking something or getting hurt. Because one of the other ones, as Jason and I were talking about the other day, is you wanted to take up noodling for catfish to get over your fear of sticking your hand in weird holes. And I was like, you know what? There is a good reason I have that fear. I'm willing to take video of you doing it, but I'm going to keep my fear firmly in place. I do not like to stick my hand into places I cannot see.
My grandfather used to do that for snapping turtles.
God, that's even worse.
Yeah, right.
I thought so too. He lived into his late 80s, early 90s.
All his fingers.
Died with 10 fingers.
Wow.
Wow.
And being from West Virginia, I have to say that he started with 10, not 12. So yeah, he said that if you stick your hand up in a hole and you feel the shell, if it's smooth, you're in trouble. From the front back, it's smooth. From the back forward, it's rough. So if it's rough, you're good. You're at the right end. You fish around underneath the shell, you'll find the tail and pull him out. But if it's smooth, he backed in there or turned around, and you're messing with the front end. You might want to pull your hand out.
Yeah.
But we used to eat a lot of snapping turtle that he would go catch himself. I never caught any. I'm good.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not sticking my hand down there to let it get bit. To be like, oh, that's the smooth side.
Yeah. Oh, here you go. If you ever have a turtle grab hold of your finger, if you take a piece of straw or blade of grass and stick it in his nose, run it back about 3 inches, he will open his mouth and keep his mouth open until that straw comes out of his nose.
That is good to know.
That's good to know.
There's your Florida hillbilly tip of the day.
Rock on.
How to get a turtle off your finger.
And the same grandfather showed me that. He says, "Here, kid, let me show you this." And I'm like, "Why is his mouth open?" He says, "He has straw in his nose. He's gonna keep that mouth open until it comes out of there."
That's pretty funny. I wonder if there's any value in putting small turtles in an aquaponic system.
They'd eat the fish.
Yeah, they eat the fish.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because you'd have to really be careful about keeping them separate.
Yeah, it wouldn't be worth
Yeah, it's like a whole bunch of work for nothing. Just to eat some random turtles.
Yeah, I'd rather just go down to the bayou and catch one.
I don't think I'd want to eat turtles out of our bios.
But you eat the crawfish. What's the difference?
Not at our.
At least the turtles eat some of the stuff that's live. Crawfish, they're like cockroaches underwater.
Yeah, that is extremely true. That is extremely true. Although
and
I
don't know where they're coming from, bro.
Well, that is true. I like to think that the crawfish are farm raised, but for all I know, they're going out to the bayou and digging them out. Yeah, our bios are not like Louisiana bios. Our bios are drainage ditches.
Yeah.
Very large drainage ditches.
If it makes you feel any better, I go and catch blue crabs out of the mosquito ditches that run off of a nuclear power plant.
And you've only got 10 fingers.
I I don't glow in the dark either.
Nice.
See, man?
Nice. You're not like one of those genetically engineered pigs that glow in the dark.
Nope. I live in the shadow of St. Lucie County power plant.
Now, Darrell, you said you get to go hunting. How are the hogs over there?
Hog hunting it's shooting. It's not hunting.
All right.
You put a corn feeder out, and did you know that pigs can tell time? I swear they can. If you set that timer up to go off at 7:30,
They'll be there
at 7:25, they'll show up and look up and wait.
Awesomeness.
It's the crazy. I'm like, that pig just look up. That pig knows that it's time, doesn't it?
Wow.
Wow. Are y'all having the same wild boar or wild hog problem, I guess, that we're having?
It's similar. The thing that Florida has, they call them crackers. They're like rednecks, hillbillies. It's the Florida version, and they're like me. They'll eat anything. Not many hogs go to waste. So I'm actually having trouble getting my meat guy, same one I've mentioned twice now. He's been after me. He's like, you need to get me a couple sows. We're gonna make some bacon, and I can't come up with one.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
It's not like there's a shortage of them. It's just that everyone that shoots one keeps it for themselves.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think we've still got a problem where it's just like we can't shoot them fast enough here.
They're bad. In some areas they're worse than others. What's funny is Florida is there's a lot of second homes, a lot of high end homes, a lot of gated communities. And my day job takes me into a lot of these places, and I'll go in and I'll see a $250,000 house, beautiful pool, beautiful backyard, all manicured, and the whole backyard is ripped up by hogs.
I'll be like, I'll be back later and
where-
I'll take care of that problem for you.
Well, they don't want the problem, but they don't want you shooting either,
Yeah.
because they're not from here. They're from New York and New Jersey.
So now, what have you run into with rain catchment systems? Because you're trying it a little bit.
I have a 55-gallon drum that I use. It's used in conjunction with my Berkey filter for emergencies. One of the nice things, I practice preparedness. I never called myself a prepper until I found out that it was actually a term. Growing up in West Virginia, we lived 45 minutes from the nearest store. If you needed something, you bought two when you went out. You don't make a trip to go get a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread. You either had it or you waited until the next time you went in to do other things. We always stocked up on things. We raised our own gardens and everything. So living in Florida, we've got this nasty little weather thing called a hurricane that hits us.
Oh, y'all have those too?
I actually live about a mile from where we had landfall. 3 hurricanes made landfall in a year. 2 of them were like a week and a half, 2 weeks apart. So, and we stayed in place. We didn't adjust our lives at all. The only handout I took in 3 hurricanes hitting us dead center was a bottle of water while I was standing in line to go buy something. You know, a Red Cross guy gave me a bottle of water. I'm like, I don't need this. In fact, second hurricane that came through, I had 3 generators at the time. I actually loaned it out to a buddy of mine so he could run his store and stay in business. It was just an extended camping trip where we stayed home. Our family adjusted to it. But I used the water barrels, the rain catchment, as an extension of our water storage. I just have a 55-gallon drum. I've shortened a downspout so that it runs off into the top of the drum. I cut a square out and then use hardware cloth to filter out the bigger chunks. And I figured the Berkey catch the rest of them. If you go to intherabbithole.com and go to the forums, I believe it's under the DIY section, you'll find it.
Oh, sweet.
Nice plug.
Nice plug. And there will be lots of links in the show notes today, both to Darrell stuff and stuff in the forum that we've talked about. That's pretty cool, though, that you've liked your Berkey so much. I've never really had experience with him. And I've got, to me, I guess when I've looked at him so many times, I'm like, well, if I need to purify water, I'll just boil it and then strain it through something. But I mean, I probably should get some kind of water filter.
I'm gonna interrupt you there for a second. You actually did that backwards. You should strain it first and then boil it.
Well, yeah. Thank you for correcting the order of that.
I'm another plug. I'm an assistant instructor at Green Earth Survival Schools down here in Florida. So
Awesome.
Oh, that's cool. See, now I didn't even know that.
yeah, if you go to Green Earth Survival Schools, the main instructor is Hank. He's a Vietnam vet. So he grew up in Kentucky. He and I laugh when we have the classes come in. We're like, these people are paying us to do stuff that we did growing up just so we could get by. You know, it wasn't survival to us. Well, it was survival to us, but we didn't call it that. We just called it living. But Hank's a good guy. He did 4 tours in Nam.
Oh, wow.
And I have a lot of respect for that man. And you'll never find a more soft-spoken, easy to get along with guy ever, and he just knows his stuff. Hank's got to be in his 60s, and he does minimalist hiking still. His wife will drop him off in North Florida, and he's got a backpack that he actually spends time trimming off the threads so that he can shave grams off of his weight.
Huh.
And he'll walk 300 miles, and his wife will pick him up somewhere else, 4 or 5 days later.
Wow.
Wow.
He's an animal. I love the guy to death. And he's a lot of fun to talk to. He's done some crazy things. He's a treasure diver, a legitimate, honest to goodness, paid treasure diver. He's just done some interesting things. And a lot of stuff I thought was BS, and especially the treasure diving. He was telling me about this wreck he used to work off the Carolina coast. And one day he brings the VCR tape. He says, "Here, I got a Discover video off the Discovery Channel. I want you to watch this. It's about the wreck I was telling you about." So I go and I watch it, and about halfway through, I'm like, "Oh crap, that's Hank. That's him right there. He's a lot younger, but that's him."
Oh, wow, that's neat. See,
he's not one of those I've probably tooted his horn more just talking about him now than he has in the last year.
Oh, see, now those are the best kind of people, in my opinion. When the kind of people that are just like, you find out after a while that they're actually, they're not the kind of people that are constantly telling you how wonderful they are and how amazing they are and everything. But I want to circle back to the survival school because I didn't even know you were involved in that. So what all do you guys do?
It's mostly loss prevention. We have 2 types of groups. We have the kid groups where we do like homeschooling groups and private school stuff. And then we have the hikers, the backpackers, and we do a lot of loss proofing, basic survival stuff. Let's face it, anywhere in Florida, you walk for an hour and a half, 2 hours, you're going to find civilization of some sort.
Mm.
Unless you're going into the swamps and then you deserve what you get. You shouldn't have been there to begin with.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just common sense stuff. It's how to build a shelter, how to loss proof, how to find direction, purifying water. Purifying water. You know how long you're supposed to boil water to make it safe?
Till it gets to a rolling boil and then stop.
You don't even have to hit a boil. The reason you boil water is that's a physical, a viewable state that you can tell that it's reached a certain temperature.
Mm-hmm.
You only need to get about 165 degrees to kill everything. But you can't look at it and say, "Oh, that's 165.
Yeah.
So You hit a boil, you're good. But it's a lot of it's just the basics. Once in a while, not so much me as much as Hank does. Hank, he only calls me in when he's got big groups, which is fine because he knows he lives the stuff. He was a gunner on helicopter in Nam. He's been through every survival school they had back then. The guy literally he walked in knowing a lot and walked out knowing a lot more.
Oh wow.
He's been on multiple TV shows as a consultant. The good ones, not the ones that hype things. So, he sends me emails all the time. "Hey, they're looking for a prepper family. You want to do this?" "Nope." "Hey, they're looking for someone for the survival show. You want to do it?" "Nope."
Yeah, those shows were. It's funny. I actually have when they first came out, I was pretty much on board with everybody else in the community. That I was like, "Oh, this is stupid" and everything else. And yeah, they're still pretty overblown and goofy. But we've had a fair number of people that at least have shown up to the forum saying that they got interested in prep from those shows. And all of them have shown up to the forum being very reasonable, well-rounded people that just suddenly went, those people look crazy, but that's not a bad idea.
Right.
That's the reason I got started was I wanted to, people started asking me, "Well, what do we do about this? What do we do about this?" Back to the hurricane thing. It's a real threat every year here.
Yeah.
Every year, everyone's going to get panicked at least a little bit about a storm out in the Atlantic. People would ask me, "Well, what are you doing?" "I'm not doing anything." "Why not?" "Because I'm always ready." But why are you always ready? Well, because it's not just hurricanes I'm ready for. If you're ready for a hurricane, you're ready for a lot of stuff. The CDC had a push. They actually have zombie posters. I've got 2 of them. I love it. I got CDC zombie posters.
Oh, did you get the posters?
I did. They're fantastic. I love them.
I'm so jealous.
I do have one problem. My wife won't let me hang them up anywhere.
Ah.
And it says, get a kit, make a plan. It's good advice no matter what. They basically put the zombies on there. They said, if you're ready for zombies, you're ready for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And from a prepper standpoint, I've used my stuff multiple times, not just for hurricanes. Being self-employed, last summer I had a hernia operation. I was down for 30 days. And if I'm not working, I'm not making any money.
Yeah.
And we lived off our preps. It was no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
We got a little tired of eating rice, and especially since I'm on the paleo diet, it's starting to get a little touchy for me. But yeah, it's prepping isn't just for zombie apocalypse. It's for when bad things happen. If you're out of work for a week, you don't have to worry about running to the store if you've got stuff set by. I've got a brother, I love him dearly, that is completely not on board with any of this. But it never fails that every month or two he'll call me up, hey, you got this? And it's Sunday night at 10 o'clock. And I'm like, yeah, here, what do you need? It's right here. Here you go.
And he still hasn't caught on yet.
He's like half the people. There are two people. Well, there's three kinds. There's the kind that stick their head in the sand and never listen. Then there's the kind that say, how do I do this? And then there's the kind that drive me nuts and say, well, if anything happens, I'm going to come to your house.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really drive me nuts. Yeah. So you know what? You better be bringing something. So what do you mean? I said, well, you ain't coming inside, so you better bring food to sit out in my yard. Otherwise, you're going to go on, you know, if it's really a zombie apocalypse and it gets that bad, we're eating you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're what is it? You and I were saying one day, you're either bringing something or you're bringing meat.
Right. This country there's a part of this country that's just gotten so complacent about someone will take care of me that it drives me nuts. And that's what drove me to start writing to begin with. That, and my wife told me that we couldn't move back to West Virginia, so I had to have some sort of therapeutic outlet. And writing was cheaper than actually going to a shrink.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you as far as that aspect goes.
Yeah.
There's so many things that it's so simple to do to make yourself a little more prepared for bad things. Let's face it, we might not have zombies attack us tomorrow, but I can promise you, everybody that's going to listen to this today will eat food tomorrow. And if you can buy food, this is what I can't stress enough to people. If you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy macaroni and cheese, if you're going to buy a box today, why not buy two? It doesn't cost you that much more, and it's not going to go to waste. And if you're really smart about it, wait till it goes on sale and then buy four. And now you've doubled your, you know, if you buy one, get one, and get 4 boxes for the price of 2, you've done a better investment than anything you could do in the stock market, because that's like a 10 or 12% return.
Very true.
That is so true, man. So true. And I know, I mean, it's interesting, especially like you were talking about your brother calls you up in the middle of the night and you've got stuff. And it's interesting, the more you prep, I mean, as long as you haven't gone completely overboard and done something crazy, like just gone out and bought 2 years worth of food just and then stuck it in the closet or something, but it's really part of your lifestyle. It is amazing. You know, it's kind of like when I started carrying a Leatherman, all of a sudden I was like all these things that I can just fix right there while I'm standing there without thinking about it. And I'm like, man, how did I walk around without one of these before?
Yeah.
So, or the same thing when I went a long time without carrying, I mean, I carried a pocket knife while I was a kid until I was a teenager. And then in my 20s, I stopped carrying one. And then I started carrying one again. And I'm like, why did I stop? Because I constantly need it for stuff. But it's funny because you don't, I guess in everyday life, you just don't think about it. And so many people have become so complacent and so used to either not having, or like what you were saying, somebody else will take care of it for me. And that's a shame. But
and unfortunately, half the time that someone's going to take care of it for them ends up being me. My wife and I are pretty heavily immersed in softball for our daughters. And whenever we go to a tournament, if anything's broken, if anything needs to be done, if anything needs to be resolved, where's Darrell? And they don't say where's Darrell, they usually say where's MacGyver. which is funny to me, because it wasn't until after they started calling me that you know, I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I actually went back and started watching episodes. I'm like, oh okay, I see that. And I'm sitting with my daughter, she was like 11 at the time, and I looked at her and I said, you see what he's got right there? Yes. Yeah. He's going to do this. She's like, how do you know? I'm like, because it just makes sense. And then that's what he did. She's like, how'd you know? I'm like, because it just made sense. That's why you have those 4 things together.
It's funny because, you know, I mean, we kind of grew up on MacGyver, you know, so we're like the MacGyver generation. Whereas, like, you know, these younger generations, they're completely clueless, man.
Just as Justin Bieber doesn't carry a Leatherman.
Yeah, no.
or a Swiss Army knife.
Right.
The little things, you said you carry a Leatherman now, the little things that you can do to prepare yourself for the day can make such a difference throughout the day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It makes your day that much easier, and it's such a small thing. And if you just carry that through every step of your life just gets easier.
Yeah. It is amazing how all of a sudden all those little things that you accumulate or build up or start carrying around with you because they're good ideas to have with you how all of a sudden you do actually find constant places where you're like, oh yeah, oh, I've got this thing and I can take care of that with this thing.
Yep.
And of course, having the understanding of how the thing works to use it is also quite helpful, but and not just buying it, but actually learning how to use it. So, well, Darrell, I sure appreciate you having you on the show, especially for our season finale. And
Well, as long as it's season finale, not show finale.
No.
Just season.
I'm making everyone a promise right now. It is barring the zombie apocalypse, between now and August. The show will be back August 26th, and hopefully we're gonna come back refreshed and have had a chance to also schedule a lot of interviews and a lot of other stuff that I haven't had time to do in the last couple of months, and so let some things with the show slip that used to be really great parts of the show, like having guests like Darrell on. And
well, I don't mind coming on here and helping you guys out, because I think what you guys put out there is some of the best stuff running. My only complaint is that it doesn't happen more often, but I understand why.
Yeah.
If there's anything I can do, just ask. And I'm going to follow up with, I was a locksmith for a couple years. I've got 20 years IT experience. I can find you, and I will hunt you down if you don't keep the show going.
We will. I promise. Right. We will be back. And for anybody listening to this, of course, the show is going to be in reruns. And as so many people have said so many times, that they have taken so much away when they've gone back and listened to the second or third time. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, reruns, it's a great opportunity to recover stuff that, you'll probably get a lot out of it the second time you listen to it. So even if you're begrudging it a little bit,
I have to add in one thing on that note. You guys did the homeschooling episode.
Yeah.
My wife and I listened to it on a road trip. We listened to it twice on the road trip. And by the end of the road trip, we decided that we were going to homeschool our kid, our youngest one. So we homeschool because of what you put out.
Wow.
Oh, see, now that's a lot of pressure to come back now. I'm feeling that guilt. That was good. That was really good.
So not only did I listen to your show, but I listened to reruns of the show as fast as I could. As soon as it got to the end, we listened through it a second time.
Yeah.
So you have some very good content. The quality of your content is fantastic.
Well, thank you, Darrell. Man, that means a lot coming from you. And I promise to you and everybody else, the show will come back. In the meantime, we are going to have some fun taking a little time off, and hopefully even really do some things to take some of our preps forward, because I know that's one of the things that I've noticed in my own life lacking, is that, in doing the show and in the production and everything else, that has cut into my time and my ability to take care of my own preps. Now, I mean, I'm pretty far along in most of my preps, but there are things that I definitely need to, diminishing skills and other things that definitely need some attention. But with that, we're going to wrap up episode 101, and we will see everybody in August. In the meantime, stay safe and sound. In the Rabbit Hole isn't just a podcast and a blog. It's also a community. The best way to connect to that community is by joining me and the other rabbit holers on the In the Rabbit Hole forum at forum.intherabbithole.com. Remember, survival chi starts with community. So come join me at forum.intherabbithole.com, and let's talk about all things preparedness. From the Lone Star State, till next time, stay safe and sound.